My guest today is Mike Peckham, a Managing Director of Advisory at KPMG. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our discussion today. Agencies are facing a strategic imperative to use artificial intelligence in their missions. AI and machine learning, as well as other emerging technologies, are an enabler of the workforce to collect, analyze, and deliver insights to improve decision-making, something we've talked about quite often about the improvement of decision-making. At the same time, AI and ML exposes agencies to new and possibly a different set of risks. They also must consider new policy and governance approaches to mitigate and minimize those risks. So how can agencies do that? Well, Mike, that's where you come in. Once again, Mike Peckham, the Managing Director of Advisory at KPMG, will tell us more about how agencies should examine their current level of AI risk preparedness and understand potential vulnerabilities. So, Mike, let me start at the beginning. Why is there such a concern around AI, particularly in light of the potential benefits, productivity, savings? There's this kind of push and pull happening.
Well, that's a great question because my journey with AI started almost 20 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago now, when I was working at the Department of Health and Human Services. And it's very interesting from the perspective that at that point in time, people were very afraid of AI. And we were using simple machine learning just to read invoices, optical character recognition. And the immediate response was, my job is going away. That was it. And I think that is still really foundational to what's going on today. What I find interesting about that is no jobs go away. The capacity building that these new technologies allow is incredible, because when I joined the government, I was literally sitting at the GS3 entering data into an old 3270 emulator, mainframe. Not what I wanted to do with my life. So now that you have the information that's being able to be entered into a system automatically for you, you're being able to expose the data that is in that the information in that data and look at it and be analytical. That's really the point of why I got a college degree, and I don't know about others, but that's why I think it's really, really cool.
One of the things when you bring up, oh my goodness, my job is at risk, that's been a refrain over the last 5, 6, 7 years, specifically as more agencies started using, for instance, robotics process automation, RPA, which is kind of the junior AI. Even all the successes that's happened over the last few years with using RPA as an example, and now the move to AI, that still is that the common refrain you hear?
So I love the RPA analogy. There's a constant argument, I would say right now, is RPA part of AI? I mean,
that's the whole discussion we could have, right?
So, and I get it, because a guy that I worked with when I was in the government who was over at GSA, he called it the gateway drug to AI. And I believe he was right from the perspective of RPA introduces folks to this idea or this concept that computers can do the work of the individual. They can do it a lot faster, and they can make life a lot easier. It's the intelligent automation piece where you start to layer on the technologies, the machine learning, anything else, natural language processing that you want to use to glean more information. That's when it gets a little scary for folks. But I can tell you, I did, back in the early 1990s, dating myself a little bit, I did travel post-payment audits. And I walked back into an organization years later, and I said, I'd love to introduce RPA. And so we did. And we did it specifically on the travel post-payment audits because I knew that that process hadn't changed much in all that time, and it really hadn't. I checked with everybody. So we went in, utilizing human-centered design. We really looked very closely at the process, and we said, perfect opportunity, and it was. We took a 54-minute process down to 9 minutes. And everybody said, hey, we're done. I said, well, wait a minute. Think about what we can do if we really start to put some intelligent automation behind this. If we start to do analysis, so we've got the RPA introducing the information to the individual, that previously they're pulling all that information together. Well, now we start to understand what the human does with that information so that the next time around, when we layer in our intelligent automation and the AI, then it's giving them options. Hey, 90% of the time when I saw these scenarios, it was option A. 70% of the time it was whatever. It's helping the human make that final decision, but allowing the human to make that final decision. And that goes back to that point of, are we going to replace people, with the robots? No, I think that we do need to make sure that the humans are there, because we inherently understand things about data that a computer never will.
One of the things that I've seen over the last, again, 3, 4, 5 years around RPA specifically, and we're going to not spend a ton of time on RPA, but is just the acceptance. I think once people saw, especially in the financial management world, which obviously you came from, I don't have to enter data in data sheets. Is that the same kind of benefits people are starting to see with advanced AI and machine learning, that, it's really going to make my job better, easier, and if you will, I can have a bigger impact on the mission?
I think you are right, and I think that the realization is now there. The fear is getting less and less, and that is where, when we sit from an organization like KPMG, we want to enlighten folks that this will only make your life better. Think about the idea of how you use all the tools that are on your, whether you use Apple or Android, doesn't matter. Look at how you're using those tools today. You're using all sorts of AI in ways that you never dreamed that you would. It's made your life easier. You're shopping on Amazon, you're buying stuff today, you're getting it tomorrow at your house. These are things that we need to be introducing into our professional lives. We've just been very, very slow to adopt them. And honestly, I don't have the answer for that, but I think, to your point, people are starting to make that connection. The realization is there, and we want to help, because I think that we're going to see things move really fast over the next probably like 3 to 5 years. I mean, really fast. I think that COVID showed opportunity. I think that now that we're back together and people are realizing that we can get these projects up and running together and really make some impactful change, it's going to happen, and it's going to make our heads spin.
I think folks don't kind of realize what's behind a lot of those things you mentioned, whether it's Amazon or something else, what the AI is driving. Of course, we all know when I search, I want to buy a tool, and all of a sudden I get tool ads for the next 6 months, but that's a whole different discussion. So as you talk about folks who are enlightened, make their life better, they're really kind of, the fear is less and less, but there's still risks involved. And I think that's the other part of the conversation we have to hit upon. The risk beyond, will I lose my job, I think is short-term risk. People realize fairly soon, no, my job actually will get potentially better and more involved. But what are some of those other risks that are maybe more long-term that agencies need to keep in mind and mitigate?
So we've come up with an accelerated AI risk diagnostic tool, and things that we're looking at are, have you done an inventory of how you're using AI today? And I can tell you that when I was in the government, we had not done that. And we have clients right now who are taking that very first step. And I think it is a great first step. Understanding what you have and how you're using it is so important, so that, one, these are government funds, and nobody wants to waste those dollars. We're all taxpayers. We want to make sure we're getting the biggest bang for buck. But if you don't understand, if you haven't done an inventory, you don't understand what you have, and you don't understand how you're using it, that's going to create fear for anything new that you're doing. And if you're able to talk to somebody who's already been down that path, down that road, and they can say, yeah, it's a little bit scary, but guess what? Here's what we did, here's how we handled it. This is where our diagnostic can really help out. We are prepared to come in, help folks tackle those challenges, those problems, and move forward at the fast pace that I was just talking about.
A lot of folks that when I talk to and they talk about AI, it's not really AI. The government is not really using AI. It's kind of the skin underneath, and really it's the predictive analytics at best, maybe advanced analytics at best, but it's not true AI. Let me start with how you all define AI in your accelerated AI risk diagnostic tool, and maybe that's a good starting point to move off of, okay, well, how do you do an inventory? First, you got to understand, what is AI?
So first and foremost, look at NIST if you want to, look at the definition of AI. When we were doing AI under reInvent grants management when I was in the federal government, it was very straightforward. It was very black and white. We weren't running into these ideas of, what if this happens or what if that happens? It was, I'm trying to find information, I'm trying to present the information, and I'm trying to make the information consumable. We moved into sentiment analysis. And that's where it got very, very bizarre right away. And that's where I think that you need ethical AI, because we started looking from a concept of, these are grant pre-award risk assessments. Should we be providing funding to a particular grant recipient or not? And when you start talking about a sentiment analysis, that came up because everybody does a Google search on everybody before they do any award in the federal government. So if you read CFO leaves organization, is that good or is that bad? I don't know until I dig in a little bit deeper. When you start to glean an article and you're looking for, let's say you're looking for fraud, you're looking for embezzlement, but none of those things come up, The CFO may have left because they were in an organization that was small and they moved to a large organization. That's a good thing, and it probably means he was running a really tight ship. So that's where I think this ethical AI comes in, where you have to really be careful about how you're moving forward. And that is when we paused and said, we need to do a little more homework before we move out on this. The rest of the stuff we were presenting very, very quickly. We were moving at a rapid pace. That gave us a little case for concern. And I think that that's probably what most folks are using AI in some way, shape, or form. But it's when you get into this advanced analytics, that's when it starts to become a little bit scary.
It's also bad headline writing if someone just says CFO to leave. I mean, that's just not good journalism.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that.
I can tell you that much. That's my expertise. Maybe not ethical AI, but I can tell you that. When you go through the framework a little bit for me and explain what's in it, how it works, and so beyond, hey, here's another tool that Agency X is now given by their consultant, what is the tool around?
So, I mean, I was outlining it before, but the tool is really, we're going to come in and we're going to try to the best we can hold the hand of people as they walk through this process. Understand what AI you have, how you're using it. Understand exactly where that use case can be replicated. And then, most importantly, is look at your failed projects. I have said this 1,000 times that I've learned more from failures in my career than I've learned from any success. I know that when I was in the government, we took a lot of our failed projects and we just pushed them in a closet and never wanted to look at them again. That's a treasure trove of information on how to move forward. So don't be afraid to admit that there was an issue or an error, because that issue or error can catapult you in your next round of trying to move forward. And that's where we want to help with this diagnostic.
When folks you talked about sentiment analysis, ethical AI, and I think we'll get into that in the next segment. But before we do that, what's the biggest questions you get from folks as they start to say, okay, do we have AI or not? Is it, again, that definition piece? Is it really AI? Is everything AI? Like what are you hearing from your federal clients?
So I think it is a definition. What exactly is AI? And so I think that's why everybody is putting this large box around it to say, we're not going to define it as any one particular thing. I like the term intelligent automation, because as long as you're starting the journey and you're starting to use these tools in the way that they're meant to be used in an ethical manner, you will slowly but surely see the benefits of layering on those technologies. And the first time I played with natural language processing, we were looking at the single audits on grants. And if you've ever read a single audit, I can tell you it's probably one of the worst reads you can have in your life. A 600-700 page state audit, and coming from an accounting background, incredibly boring. Natural language processing can go through that so quickly. It's unstructured data, it can make sense of it, and once you've made sense of it and you understand where information is throughout that entire 600 page document, then you can start to go in and start to glean way more than you ever could have understood just doing manual reviews. And that, to me, is what people are starting to recognize is the best part about these technologies.
Good spot to take a break. When we come back, we can dig deeper into some of those risks, how to mitigate the risks, and we can continue our discussion. You're listening to The Discussion, Modern Government AI Risk Management, sponsored by KPMG on Federal News Network.